We are inviting children groups to come in and learn more about our ecosystem and our food system, urban agriculture, and just it's about us being connected, right? Like what we're doing is inviting them to come in and taking what they learn and bringing it back to their school and community garden.
We're not separate from other things. We're all like beings, being in our own ways.
The lawn enforces this idea that we're all individuals with our separate disconnected spaces, and when we unlawn and rewild, it's a way of having solidarity with our neighbors and recognizing that we are all connected to our fellow humans as well as the rest of the beings.
We're going to bring out the wisdom that's inside. We're going to match it with all of the techniques and expertise that's already running around out there. We can make a difference, and we have to make a difference.
Pesticides, fracking, GMOs, and where have we gotten? And with this, we're solutionaries. It's not a Band-Aid. We're empowering others and leaving a legacy and creating the world we want to live in. I don't think there's anything more important right now than this.
And we were using each of our experiences and our own unique perspectives to try to come up with real solutions and answers.
Unlawnful campaign, we're kicking it off now. You might start with an existing lawn. You might start with a little corner of a lawn. Maybe you have a veggie garden. You want to diversify that. What you want to create might be very different. Help us create resource materials, help us promote your projects, promote the community's projects. You know, one layer of participation would be people simply sharing their own stories on social media. And then also culminating with next spring, actually planting in a whole bunch of different places, ideally.
We have a lot of resources. This is a regional organization of permaculture professionals. We need to unbox our minds. We need to unbox our lawns. We need to unbox our social expectations. Begin to work with each other to be more free so that you can free each other's lawns, our minds, our society.
Our topic today, why be unlawnful? The root of this issue, the root behind why we have lawns and why we maintain lawns is there's so much that's woven into the threads of colonialism and capitalism.
Because remember, as permaculturists, we take slow, small steps. When we're working with Earth, it's a call and response conversation. We have to listen. We have to learn how to see and to see differently. And I think by having that exchange so close to your house, something you have to look at every day, this is how we change our hearts and our minds. It's not something that you're expected to do by yourself. We're hoping that you will find at least 2 neighbors who will work with you on your lawn, and then you will work on their lawn. Recreate that barn raising ethic. My issues being your issues, and we're solving them together. There's 60 million acres of lawn in the United States. It is the largest crop that we have. It is the only crop that all of us participate in growing together. A crop that does not feed anyone. It does not bring resources to anyone. It drains our resources. It drains our time. We seem to be stuck to it for the last 200 years. If we even change 10 million acres, that's an enormous impact. The global climate, it's an enormous impact on our neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods will be places of greater beauty. They will be places where there's better mental health, better emotional health. Our theme this year is uprooting and unearthing.
In the 1800s, it started in Europe, the root of colonization. And at first, these were big swaths of land which were grazed by livestock. And so they could get to the ground to create really short grass. And having a big swath of land above that of your livestock needs was seen as a symbol of status. It was saying that I have extra land to waste, where they would trim it down with, once the livestock was out of the range, then they would use slave laborers or very low-wage workers to cut the grass with a scythe. So then after that, in the 1860s, there was the invention of the first mechanical mower, which was actually a carpet trimmer and a carpet cleaner. which is really fascinating. And so that was the first iteration of the lawnmower, easier to use than livestock management, and it would replace the slave laborers. And then in the 1920s, doing a little jump there became an obsession with golf courses as a symbol of status and wealth, and again, that capacity to be able to waste. And then in the 1950s, this was post World War II. So a bunch of veterans were coming back from the war in North America. And so they were given some money to be able to afford houses. And so this was the dawn of suburbia. And there was a small town where Abraham Levitt became the developer and the organizer of front yard management. And so Abe's standard was that in this community, in the deed of the development, you had to mow your lawn once a week. And if you failed to mow your lawn once a week, they would come and do it for you and charge you a bill, and you'd be faced with social pressures to mow your lawn. So that was the first iteration of penalties for failing to uphold the standard of lawn management. And so in the future, then Abe's standard became America's standard. So that was the status quo that was embedded and embodied, and that was the seed for the modern lawns that we have today. A backyard with a big lawn is like a classroom for colonialism and environmental hostility. There are 60 million acres of lawns in the United States, and there are 6.2 million lawns in Canada. So looking at the cost of lawns, they are significantly costly. So they are costly in water, costing over 9 billion gallons per year in the US, in fertilizer, taking up about 3 million tons a year in Canada, and also in pesticides. The pesticide that was originally used for lawn maintenance contained the pesticide 2,4-D, which was actually used as a post-war tool to eliminate every species except for grass in an attempt to cut off the food production of another country. And that was used as a pesticide for lawns. And in lawnmower use, which took up about 800 million gallons of gas per year in Canada. So the more lawn is mowed, the less roots that they're able to develop, which means that the more fertilizer they will need, which means that the more water that they need. And that's the cycle that will continue. And in finances, it's a $1 billion landscaping industry. Up to 70% of Calgary's residential water is used to water lawns. It is estimated that between 30 and 60% of urban freshwater is used on lawns, and that actually makes them the most irrigated crop in the US, more than any food crop. So looking at the effect that the symbol of the lawn, so these are non-native grasses that mostly populate modern lawn. The prevalence of these species in our lawns cemented a look of sameness, control, and order. And again, since the early 1800s, it was a status symbol of wealth, status, and being well kept. If you had a nice lawn, you were more favored to be more organized, more put together. It was all part of that presentation. And it criminalized plants and casts out diversity as weeds, and also criminalizes people as keepers of diversity, seeing them as going against the grain and against conformity, and actually penalized for it. Multiple people in both the US and Canada have been fined and jailed for not mowing their lawns or for having their lawns too wild. And it enforces the ideal of conformity and the relationship with the land, property ownership and domination, a very settler colonial concept of lawn maintenance was imposed on the land as well as the people. The same thing that happened to the lawns and to the native plants also happened to Indigenous people. Effects on species and biodiversity. These lawns have less food and less habitat for our native pollinators. As that population declines, it makes them more difficult to pollinate food crops, as well as all of the flowers and other species of diversity. So more lawns means less diversity. And over one generation, it found that the UK had lost 97% of its wildflower meadows due to the imposition of lawns. These gas-powered mowers made up 5% of total air pollution in the US. Water pollution, this is in the form of surface runoff from fertilizers and pesticides, contributed 40 to 60% of those fertilizers ended up in surface and groundwater, which contaminates the nearby water tables and water bodies. What the government of Canada has under a page called Starting a Lawn. And so the first line that they open with is, if you're like most people, you probably want to have a healthy looking lawn. Besides being a great place to spend time, lawns do many things. They filter pollution, buffer temperatures, absorb water, and prevent soil from washing away. I would really urge you to challenge this assumption and challenge some of these benefits that lawns have been touted for. And you can really see how institutional and perpetuated the status quo of that lawn is.
There's so many medicinals in the wild. In a small space, we'd have enough medicine for a group of people.
There was a time when people took their lawns out and planted dandelions, because dandelions, the greens are, good salad, they're blood cleanser, the roots are a coffee substitute, and the flowers, besides making dandelion wine, it's a good lesson.
We exactly want to showcase people who have done it. This is the time to do that. And the idea is to showcase them.
So uncolonization and the colonial idea of boxing people in.
We want you to feel that discomfort of being free, okay?